It's time now for Empowered Family Talk with Phrantceena.
Do you want to empower families and young people in your community? Then take the time to make a tax-deductible contribution to the Coach Tate Fund. The Coach Tate Foundation is dedicated to helping young people and their families in learning and passing on the kinds of life skills that we all need to succeed. All too often, we hear about kids and their families having encountered life's difficulties that could have been easily avoided by knowing better decision-making skills, from anger management to money management to something as simple as learning to manage how we spend our time or how we use our job skills. Make a donation to the Coach Tate Fund. It'll help kids who need help and their families too. Make your contribution to the Coach Tate Fund. Get details at www.coachtatefoundation.com. And oh, by the way, thank you.
May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Good morning. It's family time, and welcome back to Empower Family Talk right here on Praise 107.9, Jacksonville, Florida. We the people hang it forward in this 21st century as we come together to balance these scales of justice within our servant leadership. Are we ready? Good morning, Marques. Are we ready today?
We are. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and I hope you are today.
Doing fine, thank you.
Good. I'm excited about our topic today, Marques. Since last week, we've had a lot of response from our listeners, and it's really taking an effect on the way we look at things today. Last week, we talked about our ambition, right? And today we're going to highlight our servant leadership as key tenets that we all must learn to embody as we continue to live our best life here in the new America. And leading by example, Marques, I'm going to start with our Bible study group we had this week focused on John 13:12 through 15, which our youth are really looking at servant leadership and how to identify a servant leader in today's time. And again, I encourage all of our readers to read John 13, where Jesus, the Son of God, was the greatest servant leader in our time and a good model for all of us. He left an example. He said, I've given you an example that you should also do just as I've done, is to serve. And Marques, what does that look like today in 2020?
To serve really means to put others' needs before your own, but also, Phrantceena, I think it really truly means to be able to set a clear vision for where you want you and the brand to go overall. And I think so many people forget that servant leadership is not just about serving people, but you also have to have the vision and or the end result, or I always call it the never-ending finish line, in reach. And you need to know what you need to do and how you're going to get there. To me, Phrantceena, that's all servant leadership really is about.
It really is. And it's such a simple tenet, but it's such an impactful value add that we bring to our daily environments, Marques. And we, as we talked about earlier, addressing the who, what, why, when, where, and how. And who are we serving? Do we really know who we are serving? Will we accept that job into our workplaces? Will we accept the oath as a civic leader, as a public servant in our officials? What do you say to that, Marques?
I say, really and truly, we need to know. Like you said, I think the businesses, the organizations that are thriving right now in the new America, right, Phrantceena, they understand who they're trying to get in front of. They understand what the mission is, but more importantly, and I think probably most importantly, they know how to bring people together as a team and or unit to really get things accomplished. So in my mind, the companies that are thriving and doing well in the new America really understands what has to be done in order to get to have that servant leadership mentality.
I agree with you so much, Marques, and you're certainly a role model to our youth, particularly because we're the new America. We're looking at our next generation and what key qualities that bring value to the societies in which we live, work, play, say, serving is very important. And I think you've had that personal experience, what it means to serve, to lead.
Oh, absolutely. And, and today what we do with our brand, it's really about serving the clients, serving what their needs are. Where do they want to go, for instance? Like where are they currently today? When we know, when I work with someone and have the assessment of where they are today, and then most importantly, where they're trying to get to, I think once we do that, and I understand that, we can create a blueprint or a plan of action, like a roadmap to get them there. And in the work I was doing prior to having this really revelation, I would say that between like 2014 and 2016, I was not really clear about that. I was like, I want to make money, and I want to help people, but I was more driven by money and external force. I call that motivation. Today, I'm more inspired and I'm more concerned, and my primary focus is my clients, their needs, where they're trying to go, and helping them get to that next level of success, because their goals being accomplished, Phrantceena, then for that point, I will then achieve my goals.
Exactly. We didn't come to be served, but we came to serve. And another point in my career, as you know, Marques, being a servant leader, oftentimes is confused with self-servant leadership. There's so many books and writings and materials out there today on leadership. But I believe a key component is servant leadership. And that doesn't mean you're a slave necessarily, right? It means that you know who you're serving. And I know that I'm serving my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, God, in all of my work, whether it's public or private. And it doesn't enslave me to the systemic issues that we see today. Is that something that you've experienced and is a key part of our going forward for our children, is to learn that who they're serving in their daily work?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because here's the thing, Phrantceena. If you don't know who you are serving, then in real talk, in real life, especially in the new America, you're not going to know how to help anyone. Because in today's society, we're making it more known than ever that it's important that you get out there and do what you need to do at the highest level. Because if you do that and you put yourself in that place, in that space of knowing how to do that and know who you're serving, then at that point in time, you can actually make the adjustments, and you can be someone that's very forward-thinking and can actually come into organizations, come into situations, and just come into just people's lives, just local communities that you might be living in or frequent, and just learn how to serve people like the Lord did, like Jesus did, just by doing things that make you seem as a teacher or a thought leader. But when people see you doing that and serving, especially as young people, the respect level that you get from people is so much greater.
It really is, Marques. And those are well-received words that you express, because one of our youth in our Bible study said, Phrantceena, I just want to be a leader. I've always been taught leadership skills, by some of the great leaders out there that have written many books, but they admitted, Marques, what is servant? Why do I have to serve? To lead. I'm making good money. I have control over my environment and my process. And why do I have to serve? I don't serve. How do you handle a situation like that?
So really and truly, I think you'll start to understand that when you're serving, it doesn't mean you're subservient or you're a slave or you're someone that's just taking orders from others. I think we have to recognize that servant mentality is that of someone who's understands and serves a greater cause than themselves. Let's take Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He served so many people in his lifespan. I think he was 38 or 39 years old when he passed away, unfortunately, and lost his life at the hand of someone else. But his entire life, growing up, and especially from the age of I'll say 21 to 38, 39, those 17, 18 years, he was a servant leader. No one ever called Dr. King subservient. No one ever called him someone that took orders. But the way in which he lived his life from a holistic perspective, nonviolent, trying to make people understand that it's not about you having to make others feel that you have power over them or that you have all this control. And he sat down with President Lyndon Baines Johnson. He sat down with Malcolm X. He sat down with many great leaders from across the globe and our society. And he was the exemplary item and the exemplary model of servant leadership. And I think that is what has to be done at the highest level.
Oh, what a great example. What a great example. And I'm sure our listeners are writing that down, because that is something we must embrace going forward, is to learn how to be a servant leader, not a slave, in taking orders. I really like that a lot. Marques, and we've got, I believe we have a caller coming in, but we want to certainly at least identify what we're serving. When we look at today's times, it's from the White House to the outhouse and in our homes, what are we serving? Are we serving the banks? Are we serving the paper, the money? Are we serving an illusion of what we believe it should be? How important do you think what we're serving going forward is in identifying our leadership skills?
What we are serving is absolutely the backbone of a holistic New America society. Because here's the main point. If we don't know, hey, what's up, Patrick? If we don't know, if we don't know who we're serving, then at that point, we are literally putting ourselves in a position where we might be serving a cause that is unhealthy, that is unholistic, that is a cause that will cause damage to other people and potentially ourselves at a great level. So this is why leadership and in the New America, people have to be very cognizant and aware, just like in the old America, what they are serving and make sure it's for a good purpose and not something that you're going to be doing that can cause harm, detriment, or slander to someone else.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so excited about the New America and these key tenets that we bring to our listeners every Saturday on the New America and how we not just survive, but thrive in our workplaces, our communities. And when we learn how to serve others, we automatically become a leader. And Marques, I believe we have a call-in on this subject.
We do. It sounds like I heard my good friend Patrick Yankee. Patrick, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Sorry to interrupt, but when you call in, the call says, please announce yourself. I didn't realize I was going to interrupt you.
Oh, Patrick, never interruption. So, Patrick, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background on yourself, a little bit about you, where you're from, what you're up to, and kind of a little bit more about who you are, and just a little background on yourself.
Absolutely. Graduate of the Air Force Academy. When I was junior at the Academy, my dad's boss, when my dad was with A.G. Edwards, called me up one day and said, if you ever leave the military, I want to hire you too. So followed on my Air Force career with career in financial planning with A.G. Edwards. When A.G. Edwards was bought out, went independent with Raymond James. And I've always been very passionate about public speaking and leadership and all those issues. Even before the Air Force Academy, actually, one thing I forgot to mention is that kind of a glutton for punishment. I went to an Army school first, basic at Fort Knox. So I've been through Army basic training and Air Force training. But it also gives me a little bit different perspective on on leadership and training because although they have the same fundamentals, they approach it in different ways. So areas that I'm passionate in. I just love working with people and love talking about leadership. And honestly, theology is also a passion for me as well.
Phrantceena?
Well, yes, Marques. I am just listening with it's music to my ears. Welcome to Empowered Family Talk, Patrick, and we're so excited to have you on the platform for the New America that's coming up in November. And one thing I really like about your servant leadership, as you're a leader by example, bringing your message to the listeners, is your military background. What great example is that of a servant leader in your training and how you've been able to transcend into the community, the church, and everything that you do. How important do you believe that's going forward for our next generation to be able to recognize service to leadership?
Well, I think it's vitally important. One of the topics I love to talk about is servant leadership, and the very first principle of servant leadership is being purpose-driven. And I think, unfortunately, we have a society that tends to see the world very selfishly. But a purpose gives you something outside of yourself to strive for. One thing I was talking to Marques about just the other day was when you even look at the life of Christ, he came to call all sinners to himself. His mission was about the people, but it was still the mission that came first. And you see him, our glimpse into his early family life, and he's preaching in the temple, and when he's found in the temple, he's saying, "Didn't you know I'd be about my Father's work?" He was all about his mission. And you flash forward after Peter's confession of who Christ is, and Jesus starts talking about his eventual death in Jerusalem, and Jesus says, "Well, no, that's not. We're not going to let that happen." And Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." His mission is more important than people, even though the mission is the people. And I think it's very important that people recognize that as much as we want to take care of people, if we're not purpose-driven, this idea that quality, or not quality, but safety is job one. Well, safety means staying in bed and not getting out. Safety isn't job one. The mission is job one. It's the reason you get out of bed. It's the reason you do what you do. We'll do it as safe as we possibly can, but safety is never actually job one. Safety can be job two, but the mission will always be job one. So I think that's one thing that the military background gives you, is a strong focus on the mission. What is your purpose here? What is it you're trying to do? And when you break it down in terms of levels, you recognize that a squad has a mission that supports the company, and the company has a mission that supports the battalion, and so on. There's an overall Army military objective that has to be accomplished, but it's accomplished through the small missions carried out by each person in that wheel. And I think it's an aspect that modern society doesn't quite recognize these days. We watch too many movies when it comes to superheroes and the rest, where the entire mission falls on the hands of one person's shoulders. And rarely does that ever happen. The mission belongs to the organization. And it's our commitment to that mission that gets the job done, regardless of what our lowly role is in that mission.
Yeah, I like that, Patrick. It goes back to what I was saying earlier in the scripture. I like how you base it, because that's a model for us. The Bible speaks of servant leadership in many aspects. And one is key, that mission, when God sent his only son to us, he had a mission to come here to do a specific thing. And that mission was to serve and not to be served. And he remembered that throughout his 33 years. Is that correct as it relates to our divine servant leadership?
Absolutely. I mean, his mission, he came to die. I mean, honestly, the way to call all the people to himself, it was to die on the cross, to open the way to heaven for all of us. But along the way, there were other aspects of his leadership. There's the communication aspect that all leaders have to have. They have to be able to communicate what that mission is. If he had come and was just obscure somewhere in the world, nobody knew who he was, he died on a cross, and there was never a communication of the mission, would it have been accomplished? Absolutely. But would we understand it? No. And it's very important when you're dealing with the mission that you have at hand. If you're going to lead people, people have to understand what it is you're doing, where you're headed, and why you're going there. And I don't think we spend enough time in that communication role.
Right.
Another aspect of it is also making sure that we are not afraid of our own people. How many times do we hear that somebody is holding somebody back because they're going to make them look bad? This person is more talented than me. This person has more education than me. Therefore, I'm going to shunt them off to the side because otherwise they're going to make me look bad. Servant leadership really has to put yourself last and put your people first. You find somebody with talent, find ways to grow that talent and help that person. In doing so, you help the organization, you help the mission, and ultimately it will help you. Yeah, will it show that person more talented? Perhaps. But if you're there for the mission, if you're there to actually do the job you're hired to do, then that's what matters, not whether or not this person outshines you.
Exactly. Marques, it goes back to what you were saying earlier about, learning to serve in order to lead. And, I'm excited about the three of us, and Mr. Graham is going to be joining us soon on the broadcast to give us his words and his tenets on the new America and what leadership identity looks like. And our young folks are certainly looking to leaders such as ourselves who understand servant leadership. Now, Marques, do you have any other examples or comments that you'd like to share with our listeners with Patrick today?
Yes, I do. Actually. I only have one question. So, Patrick, I was asked about servant leadership, and I referenced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as someone I think exemplifies that. From your perspective, Patrick, you can tell the listeners, who is someone in your mind that is the exemplary model of servant leadership based on what they did in their life or what they did to show others the way in terms of how to be successful and take command of their lives?
Since you drew from history, I'm going to draw from history as well. And I'm a great follower of George Washington. The way that man put the mission ahead of everything that he did, ahead of his own personal safety, is just about unprecedented. I mean, he's a military leader who was always at the head of the charge. They say he was shot at multiple times. There was holes in his cloak and whatever else, but he was never actually shot. He had a divine protection, it seemed, for the beginnings of our country. But in his role of making sure that the mission got done, he took care of the people as best he could. He was constantly writing to Congress saying, okay, we need more funds, we need this, we need that. But he never spared himself. And I think that's one thing that in our modern comforts we tend to forget is that key piece. There's no job that should be below a servant leader. If janitorial work needs to get done for the mission to get done, it shouldn't be beneath you to pitch in if that's what's necessary to get the job done. Unfortunately, I think that we get a little pampered. And we think that there are some things that are beneath me that shouldn't have to be done by me. I'm going to find someone else to do it. If we're not willing to do any job it takes to do the mission, then we're not willing to be a servant leader. And I think George Washington is an excellent example of a man who poured himself into his mission, and his mission was freedom. Even after the war was settled, they looked to him to become a king. They recognized his strength of character. He's an excellent role model. We'll make him king. But that wasn't his mission. His mission was liberty. He wanted to found a free country. And he turned him down and he said, no, we're going to go a different direction. And that strength of character to recognize, again, his mission wasn't just victory. His mission wasn't just establishing a new country. And his mission wasn't just to do everything he can for that country. Part of doing everything he could for the country was recognizing when it was time to be lower than they wanted him to be more humble, and to recognize he's going to go for the will of the people and not become a king and make it his own will. And I think that's very hard for us in a modern society to wrap our brains around, is that level of humility that says the mission comes before me.
Absolutely. It's all about the people. It's all about the people. Great answer, Marques.
No, that was perfect. I think it was well done, well thought out, great example. I agree with Patrick on the fact about putting a person who puts the people and puts the mission above their own fame, their own success, or their own notoriety. And you probably said this before, Phrantceena, if your mission is to achieve success and fame for yourself, then eventually you will burn out. And I think when people who have success and want to help others get noticed, have others become successful, those are the ones that are inspired for greatness and their candle and their wick is always burning bright.
Amen. Amen, gentlemen. And it looks like we're out of time. So we want to be able to, it really is. We have to work on that behind the scenes as a team. But in that regard, we want to, in our close, is to have Marques talk about the upcoming New America. And I'll take this moment right now before you start, Marques, is to congratulate Empower Family Talk. We're celebrating 3 years, Saturday, August 22nd. We started in San Diego, California, and we're excited to be here, and I think we have some celebratory comments on that, but we thank all of you for all that you do to keep us on the air and bringing the good news to our listeners. Now, Marques, do you want to close us out with that New America? Thank you, Mr. Patrick Yankee, for joining us, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the upcoming weeks.
I appreciate the invitation.
Yes, so the New America Tour will be on November 19th and 20th in Asheville, North Carolina. You can purchase tickets to come live. It's going to be over at the Biltmore Estates, near the Biltmore Estates at the Multicultural Center in Asheville. Myself, Patrick, Phrantceena, and Mr. Stedman Graham will be the keynote speakers coming out to inspire the audience, inspire the group talking about multicultural leadership and how that's going to help improve workforce development in the New America. You can sponsor the event. You can attend live. You can watch on Zoom. Again, this is a great event for some great people, different perspectives, a lot of diversity, different ideology, thought process, coming together as one unit to help push forward in the New America multicultural leadership to help improve workforce development in all communities all across the country. Please be sure to join us. You don't want to miss out.
Thank you, Marques Austin. And on that note, to all of our listeners, it's family time. It's time to get our servant leadership affairs in order today for our tomorrow. Until next week, same time, same station. Praise 107.9, Jacksonville, Florida. I am Phrantceena Tate Holrest, your hostess, and Marques Austin.
I know it's not turkey season yet, but look out, honey, 'cause here come the Colonel.
Yes, it's me, the rotten old Colonel, checking in with a lovely and charming Phrantceena Holrest. Phrantceena, it's so good to hear your voice. And so good to be with you now on this, the third anniversary of your having your radio program. I'm so impressed. Time really flies. I can't believe it's been 3 years. It seems like yesterday that you were telling me about all the things that you're going to be doing on the air and how happy and excited we were to hear that. And this is just wonderful, the third anniversary. I'm so happy. And, I know you credit me and Jack Bishop for being your mentors. And it is true. We kind of helped you along a little bit as you were getting going. But actually, I recognized good and early the great talent that you are. You're such a smooth talent, such an intelligent woman, and bring about some wonderful and inspiring things to your audience. So we're so happy for you. I'm so grateful you allowed me here this little bit of time to get on the program and say howdy and wish you just the very best for years to come. And I know your audience is really happy to have you. So anyway, congratulations, 3 years.
Hi there, Phrantceena. This is Jack Bishop. Just stopped in here to wish you a great third anniversary for Empower Family Talk Broadcasting. You do a great job of letting us know things that we may not hear in other places. So I just want to remind you that those of us here at GabNet and on my program, The Intersection, always take time out to listen to what you have to say. Happy third anniversary.
Thank you for joining Phrantceena Holrest on Empowered Family Talk. Tune in next week.